Thank you. Okay. So James, the first thing, just before James comes to tell us a little bit more about the organisation and so on, is that if you do have questions, please write them in the chat box, but we will answer them at the end. Okay? So you can write the questions whenever you like, but we will answer them all at the end. Okay. So, James, please take it away.
Hi, Josh. Hi, everybody. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. Josh, yeah, all good. Josh, I've got a PowerPoint with the stuff I was going to cover. I don't know if it's already on your stuff there or whether it would just be easier to share mine. I don't know whether I need permission from you to share something or whether I can just...
I'll just turn you into a host. So you're now the host and you can share whatever you like.
Thank you very much. Okay. So good to meet you all. I know there's a couple of current people on the call already, aren't there? Like could say that I know already, but I don't think I'll have had any dealings with any of the VIA German volunteers. So nice to meet you. I'm the director of New Ventures Worldwide, and as you probably know, we set up New Ventures Worldwide just after the COVID pandemic. The organization that Josh, myself worked for leading up to and during the COVID pandemic was called Latitude. That organization also was, partnered with VIA, and together we placed lots and lots of different VIA German volunteers around the world. Unfortunately, Latitude closed during the pandemic. The impact on obviously global travel was fairly catastrophic for lots of organizations involved in the wider international travel sector. But we launched New Ventures and essentially we picked all of the best stuff from Latitude, including the staff, and launched our own organization that we're really, really proud of. We're really pleased that we can continue to offer international opportunities to young people, but also really pleased that we can still partner with VIA, your organization, for some of the key programs. And so actually the program that we have in Spain that you're going to find out more and more about from Josh over the next few days is a program that we're running with Latitude, and actually now with New Ventures over the last couple of years, we've been able to integrate it into the VIA program as well, so that we can have German volunteers on program in Spain, as well as the other nationals. And so Josh mentioned people that you're going to meet, and they're from other countries, other nationalities around the world. Okay, so that's a little update. Because, with us at New Ventures, formerly with Latitude, because we worked with VIA for a long, long time, we are really familiar with VIA and the process that you've been through. And in particular, we know that you will have attended a lot of training events and workshops with VIA over the summer since you finished school, and possibly even a bit before then as well. And we know that that's been really, really thorough, and that you'll have received all sorts of really valuable information, advice, training through that process. It may be that some of the stuff that we cover over the next week might duplicate some of the stuff that VIA has done with you. But I always think that, you're all going to school education placements, and we know that one of the best ways to learn is by repetition and reinforcement of information. And so if we're covering stuff off that VIA have already done with you, there's a much better chance that it'll sink in and you'll remember it. But yeah, apologies if we do go over things that you feel that you already covered. Hopefully it won't. The aim, with Josh's session is that this is going to give you the much more specific, detailed information that you need about Spain, your placement, key things like living with a host family that probably weren't covered in that much detail on your VIA training. I'm going to cover off, again, just some overarching stuff that, may well be familiar to you, but again, we think it's worth just spending a little bit of time to cover these things off. So my remit is we're going to look at responsibilities, and we're going to look a little bit at health, safety, well-being, and this ladder of support that Josh mentioned. Starting off then, the mission statement, when we set up New Ventures a few years ago as staff, we pondered and deliberated and whatever to try and come up with a paragraph that we felt really summed up what we wanted to achieve with our organization. And hopefully that's a sentence, a paragraph that you've seen already in some of our information. And I'm hoping that it's a paragraph that you can relate to, that you read that and you think, yeah, that's exactly fits what I'm about wanting to do on a placement in Spain. So in terms of these responsibilities then, and at this point, more than happy for people to shout out if they've got any suggestions. And so, in the same way as VIA have certain responsibilities to help make sure that your experience and this placement goes to plan. Obviously, you've got some expectations of us. And we feel that we have certain responsibilities, but I'm interested to hear from you. What do you think are our responsibilities then in terms of making sure that you have a great experience? Feel free to shout out anybody that wants to contribute. Come on, somebody must have an idea. Anybody want to volunteer something around? What do you think is our job? What are we responsible for? Am I going to need to pick on somebody? Sorry, Sarah, I'm going to pick on you.
Maybe your responsibility is to make sure we all got a placement, and you need to build relationships with the placements so you can communicate with them and stay in contact.
Yeah, there's definitely some good things in there, Sarah. Thank you very, very much indeed for that. Anybody else got anything they want to add?
Yes, here.
Hi, yes.
I think one of the main things is giving somebody their dream destination as voluntary work, because most of the students or people who cannot achieve that dream of going to another place and doing something nice in a good heart is these days, according to the economy around the world, is really hard. And New Ventures Worldwide is giving a really big opportunity on that. I think it's about grabbing their dreams with a big light on them.
Yeah, thanks, yes. That's really nicely put. I like that very much. Thanks for that. Anybody else then, before we have a little look at what's on my slide? Okay, then, let's have a little look then. So, one of our main responsibilities is that we need to find those suitable organisations that actually both Sarah and Yesit were talking about in different countries. And so in Spain, to find schools that are suitable schools for volunteers to spend time at, and schools that we think can offer a meaningful and worthwhile role, and then make sure that that role really is appropriate given your age, experience, and interests. And so, you know, if you were to turn up at your school in Spain and they're expecting a qualified maths teacher, then we will have got that really badly wrong. What should happen and will happen is that you'll arrive at your school and they will be expecting you as a, okay, for example, an 18-year-old finished school with the experience and interest that you've got. We've got a responsibility also to those schools to make sure that actually the people that we put forward are suitable. And so it's down to us really to make sure through our application process and interviews and looking at character references and so on, and the work that we do with VIA, that you are a suitable person to go to that school, because we want the school to be happy as well, and we have a responsibility to the school to ensure that. We've got a responsibility to give you information, advice, and guidance in the lead up to departing from Germany. We know that you get as well an awful lot of information, advice, and guidance from VIA, but our information hopefully is part of that. And then once you're in Spain, we've got a responsibility to offer you support while you're in Spain, but that support has to balance your independence, because this is your experience, your placement. This isn't a school trip or an expedition or a family holiday where you've got somebody all the time saying to you, get up, eat this, go to bed now, etc. What we want is that you make choices and decisions as part of it being your experience. But we recognize that we do need to be there in the background to provide that support when it's needed. And that's our sort of duty of care, really. So what that means is that Josh isn't going to be nagging you every 5 minutes or every day of the week to find out how you're doing and how you're getting along. But actually, he's there in the background whenever you need to draw on him. But as we'll talk about when it comes on to your responsibilities, it's for you to reach out to him and communicate with him if you do need his help and support. We've got a responsibility also just to continue to monitor those placements. There's no point in Josh placing you in a school that we know for the last 5 years has been an absolute disaster as far as volunteers are concerned. And so, it's important that we, with you and with the placement, Josh will come and do visits, make sure that those placements continue to be suitable. And for sure, some of you are going to be at new schools that we haven't worked with before. And so again, we've got a responsibility just to make sure that that works well. What about the placement then, the school itself? The school you've had the least amount to deal, of interaction with so far. You've dealt a lot with VIA, you've dealt a fair amount with us at New Ventures and with Josh. Placement actually becomes the most important relationship that you're going to develop, and hopefully people like Yesit can confirm that those are the people that you're with on a day-to-day basis. Those are the people who can answer your questions and queries on a day-to-day basis. Those are the people that can help you to do your role really effectively, and so on. So they become actually the important relationship. Your relationship with VIA, New Ventures, becomes more of a relationship in the background. The placement becomes the key one. So what are their responsibilities then? Anybody feel like shouting out?
Actually, I was here for like more than 3 months. I think 4 months actually, and making us for me, it's like they made me feel like home. The placement, the family felt make me feel like home, and um, according to responsibilities, what I got in my mind is like they take good care about you, like not always searching about you, but are you okay? Doing good, and sometimes offering transport if they can, like that. Then welcoming you into their family like a family. Yeah.
Good, thanks for that. Yes, so how about from any of the Germans then, any of the VIA volunteers that haven't started yet at their placements? What do you think that placement is responsible for?
Maybe to support us in like difficult situations, and there's somebody we can talk to, and maybe they give us support in the first time when we go to school there and become a volunteer. So, for example, I stay in contact with my school, and they told me to give me advice in the first 3 days of school and let me see how it works. And so they are there for support, and um, yeah, this is the responsibility of them.
Great, thanks for that, Sarah. It's always really nice when you run a session like this that somebody comes up with good answers each time. I really miss doing the face-to-face orientations and trainings
Oh,
we used to do.
sorry, maybe I can add something. So
Yeah.
Tami texted me her microphone doesn't work, so she couldn't speak. So
Okay.
one of us as of the Germans can speak.
That's absolutely
I
fine.
want to work with via WhatsApp.
That's fine. You'll have to put some things in the chat. Okay. Actually, sorry, yeah, you covered off 2 or 3 points sort of in there. So let's have a look what I've got on my list. Obviously, they've got a responsibility to agree realistic duties. What we don't want is obviously for them to be expecting and asking you to do things that are way outside of your skill set or confidence set, or just aren't appropriate. So the realistic duties is important. Yeah, we ask all of the schools that there's somebody at the school that's your sort of go-to number one contact person. You're going to be introduced to lots and lots of new people when you first get to your placement. You're going to forget a lot of their names, which is only normal. So what hopefully is there is this one person that you can always go to and say, help, I can't remember who that person was that I met on day one, or I can't remember what was said, this particular part of induction, and it's somebody that will be able to help and remind you. Sarah touched on this as well. We ask that the schools provide an appropriate induction when you arrive. So as Sarah was saying, her school's going to spend that first 2 or 3 days, really helping her to understand how the school works and show her around. And that's, again, what we would expect from your placements. Yeah, so the placement has a responsibility also around your host families. It varies a little bit in Spain, and Josh will go into more details about host families later on. But obviously, the placement also has a role in terms of your host family. Normally, the placements that we work with provide a pre-agreed allowance. That's our standard with New Ventures, and it's also a standard with VIA as well. But actually, our Spain program, the schools that we work with, they're very willing to meet all the other responsibilities that are provided, but they don't really see why they would pay for a volunteer and give a volunteer an allowance. Instead, what those schools have always done with us, with New Ventures and with Latitude, is allow volunteers time and also help to organise language tuition with people through the school or in the wider community in order to generate that allowance or pocket money. One of the ways in which actually we found it hard to integrate the program completely into the VIA model is around this allowance. And so actually we are going to provide you all directly with a small monthly allowance in order to meet VIA's requirements. But at the same time, the schools will still help, support, and want you to do language work in the wider community. Is that okay, Josh?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Placements have also got a responsibility around placement level, health, safety, and security, in the same way as they would for any of their other teachers or wider staff. And the same if you were working for a school back in Germany. There's a responsibility on the placement to make sure that your working environment is safe and healthy. Oh, Sarah's got her hand up. Go for it.
Yeah, I've got a question to the lessons we can give. Is there something like I have to imagine like going to school and preparing my own lessons to like teach them? So like I need some like worksheets or something I need to care for or look for?
Yeah, Josh, I'm sure could answer that, but I'm confident that he's definitely going to cover off your question on sessions later on in the week. For sure. Yeah. Is that fair enough, Josh?
Absolutely. We'll have a special session that will be tomorrow about the schools and the kind of things that you can do. There will be some things which they want you to do, which the schools want you to do, and other things I think you're going to feel a lot more satisfied if you're able to bring in some of your own ideas. And so we'll look at how to do that tomorrow.
Good. The schools also have got a responsibility to tell us stuff. If as I said, with Josh isn't going to be checking on you, on a day-to-day basis. At the same time, Josh isn't constantly ringing up the school or emailing the school to say, how's it going with the volunteer that's there? There's an expectation that actually the school will report stuff to us. And obviously we hope they report good stuff as well as things that maybe they need help with. But schools are always busy places, and invariably, the good stuff gets missed out. And so, yeah, when schools do get in touch with Josh, it's usually because there's something they want help with to help resolve. And that's absolutely fine. But, they've got a responsibility to reach out to Josh for that sort of help. And lastly, the schools have got a responsibility to manage and monitor your performance. I mean, from my experience, this can really vary wildly from school to school or other types of placement. And I know that VIA will have also done stuff with you around trying to get feedback from your placement, because you're going to want to know if you're doing a good job or not. You're going to, you'll need someone to say, yeah, we're really happy with your performance and how you're doing. But culturally, how that works in different countries can really, really vary. And so I would imagine that monitoring, managing volunteer performance in, say, I don't know, a school in Germany might be quite different than monitoring, managing volunteer performance at a school in Spain. So that's something that Josh will touch on a little bit as well. My advice always is, while we would expect a school or any of our other placements to give regular, structured feedback to volunteers, the reality is it might not happen like that. And so actually, part of your role is often going to be asking for that feedback, talking to your mentor or other people that you're working closely with, and getting that feedback and asking if you need it in a particularly structured way and so on to do that. Maybe the expectation is, don't sort of assume that it's automatically going to happen. And if it does, and you're at a school that, sits you down regularly every week and, gives you a end of the week feedback, then great. But it might not be like that. And that's where it's absolutely fine for you to be asking and communicating. Okay, and the last part of the responsibilities is obviously you. We've talked about New Venture, we've talked about the placement. What about you? What do you think are your responsibilities in order to make this placement successful?
I bet Kudzi could tell us a few things. Are you there, Kudzi?
Yeah, I'm here. Okay. First of all, I would say interaction with the people at school, whether be it at home, at school, or around the neighborhood. This is the most important thing because while we're here as volunteers, people that want to learn from us. So we need to speak to them more often and the other thing we shouldn't do, we shouldn't of course, I know some of the people, they're introverts, but sometimes you're in a different part of the world, so you need to express yourself, not like your things and stuff, but just speak to the people, and talk to them. They are very interested in knowing where you come from and about you. So it's the most important thing, that's interaction, and as well as just be around everyone. Don't just all the time you stay in your room or you stay in your corner when you're at school or you do like this. No, you have to be around people. When you're around people, you interact with them. Don't be alone. And you have to talk to the kids as well. That's really important. The kid, especially the kids, all the other people, yes, but especially the kids, because that's what we are here for. And you find out that most of the kids, they would love to have time with you. Some of them, they can't speak in English, but they would like to interact with you at times. Sometimes you just play with them, not necessarily because some of them, they can't even speak English, but you just show, like you are there to play with them, to help them, to talk to them.
Thanks, Kudzi, that's great. Okay, what's on my list then? So, top of the list, abide by the volunteer code of conduct. So all of you will have signed our terms and conditions and code of conduct at the start of the process with New Ventures, in the same way as I know that VIA also have a code of conduct as well. So in reality, it may have been a long time ago that you signed that our code of conduct, but also from my experience, often people don't really read the small print in terms and conditions and codes of conduct, in the same way as when you get a new mobile phone, the last thing you do is read that huge list of terms. You just scroll to the bottom and tick yes that you've read it. So we'll have a little glance at the code of conduct just to remind ourselves of what's on there. We feel it's always your responsibility to prioritize placement commitments, and that sort of overlaps a little bit with what Kudzi was saying around, really being proactive in terms of things that you're doing in the wider community, as well as with the host family and in the school as well. And what we hope is that you're willing to make that difference to others at your placement. You've got a responsibility around your own health, safety, and well-being. And what that means is that because this program is more about you being independent, you are going to make choices and decisions throughout your time. And some of those choices and decisions, could well affect your health, safety, and well-being. And so obviously what we're hoping is that you make quite sensible choices and decisions that then don't adversely affect your health and safety and your well-being. And we'll look a little bit more at that. We want you to be open to learning and feel that's a really big responsibility that you have. you know, Germany and Spain, two European countries, part of the EU, both seen as developed countries. Yeah, on the face of it, somebody might not think that there's an awful lot of difference between you know, two countries within the EU. But the reality is you'll find there are lots of differences between Germany and Spain, and ways in which how things are done in Spain really quite different from how you do things, you know, in Germany. And that actually that's all part of the fun of international travel, volunteering abroad, is to be open to those differences and open to those learning, rather than just assume a position based on your own cultural background and cultural perspective. It's good to just put that, you know, sometimes just put your own cultural perspective a little bit on hold so that you really can understand and appreciate how things are done in Spain. And I know that some of the time you're likely to find things, you know, frustrating because it's going to be different from how things are done back home. But at the end of the year, if you've been really open to learning, you can then genuinely reflect and compare two different cultures, two different ways of doing things. And hopefully you'll go back home to Germany and think, actually, I really like how people do certain things in Spain compared to how we do things in Germany. But also, you'll go back home perhaps with an appreciation of how you do things in Germany compared to in Spain, which is also absolutely fine. And it might help you to appreciate perhaps that certain things that you do back home, you know, you like how that's done. But if you're not open in the first place and open-minded, then actually it's then quite hard to really learn and understand. Good to see you got your hand up.
Okay, I just want to emphasize on being open to learning. You'll find out like in each family they have different way of doing their things, and you find out like some of the families they want every time when they do something they want to do it in their own way. So like you as a volunteer, you must be willing to to open your mind. You don't have to do it as you did it in Germany or wherever you come from. You just have to be open with them and then like do what they do. Because most of the time you'll find out like sometimes they can do something and then you feel like, ah, no, I should do it this way. But that's the way they want to do it as a family. So to avoid some conflicts, especially with the host family, you have to try as much as possible to do according to what they want to do, not according to what you want to do sometimes.
That's great. And, you know, for sure, it's on the list there to talk more about host families throughout the week. And it's great that we've got some current volunteers for Josh to draw on who really can share from their own experience of what it's like with a host family. You also, as volunteers, have got a responsibility around communication. So, you know, to escalate issues and concerns swiftly and appropriately is what's on the slide there. But, you know, even the point about asking your mentor for some feedback, you know, is your responsibility in order for that communication to take place. But certainly if something isn't going quite right, then the placement, your mentor, host family, Josh, we won't know unless actually, you know, you're communicating that and raising that as an issue. So yeah, that's a responsibility for you. Sorry, there's a bit that's missing there. Looking after your passport, ignore the BRP bit. That's from it's from I did this slide with some volunteers coming to the UK, so it's a very UK specific thing. But you've got a responsibility, and I put look after your passport, but to look after key documents that you've got there with you. And you know, there are certain things that you don't need to carry around with you on a day-to-day basis. There are things that you can leave, you know, at home safely, and things that you're only going to need on certain occasions. And your passport is one of those things that, you know, you're only going to need if you leave, when you leave Spain, and to re-enter again, and occasionally maybe for some for identification purposes. So that code of conduct that I mentioned then, this is the summary of it. You're going to make every effort to fulfill your commitment to the placement. You're going to abide by the laws and regulations in Spain. And actually, probably the laws and regulations in Spain aren't that different from Germany. So that should be the same. I think some of the areas where sometimes it varies from country to country could be around things like legal age to buy and consume alcohol. Can really vary from country to country, but I think it's the same, isn't it, across the EU. Sometimes there are laws and regulations affecting things like ability to drive when volunteers perhaps want to and got a driving license, but generally you're not going to find laws and regulations particularly different there. The third part of the code of conduct again is back to this health and safety thing, and it's again just making that point again that you're not going to place yourself at risk or others at risk, and that you recognize that you've got a responsibility for your own personal health, safety and well-being. The final part of the code of conduct is acknowledging that your attitude, your behavior, your actions during your placement, but also in the wider community, they'll reflect on you. They'll reflect potentially on the school that you're at, and wider reflect on us as an organisation and on VIA. And we're confident that 99% of the time, the way that you are, your behaviour and actions just reflect really, really positively on you as a young international volunteer. Schools are really proud to have you because the feedback they get in terms of how you're perceived in the wider community is positive, and obviously that enhances reputation of organisations like VIA and New Ventures. We as an organisation, of course, we deal with the 1% when perhaps a volunteer's behaviour, their actions, the choices and decisions they make don't reflect positively on them as a young person or on their school placement and so on. And it's on those occasions that very, very rarely we reserve the right to dismiss somebody from the programme, if that's the case. But as I said, what I really love about what we do is that 99% of the time, volunteers' behaviour and actions just do them credit and reflect really positively. In terms of staying safe then and getting support, as an organisation, when we look at country programmes like Spain, we have our list of things there on the left-hand side that we look at in terms of assessing, are there any particular risks to a young person coming from a different country and spending time there. And actually the reality is that Spain is a safe country. It's perfectly reasonable for a young person to travel to Spain and spend time there, whether through an organisation like us and VIA, or even just independently themselves. Nobody would think it wasn't appropriate for a young person to spend time in Spain. And in reality, for you guys from Germany, the same crimes happen in Spain as they do in Germany. The same things could potentially go wrong in Spain as they would in Germany. And so sort of summary advice really is, if you approach being in Spain in the same way as you would if you were suddenly going to a new town or city in Germany to start university, continue your studies, a new town or city always takes a little while to find your way around, learn about. If you approach that in the same way as being in Spain, take the same sort of initial precautions and so on, then there's absolutely no reason why you're really at any risk at all. I know Josh will go into a little bit more detail on any particular, safety issues that might be things for you to just be aware of in Spain compared to any others. So I'm not going to go into any more detail on those things. Is that okay, Josh?
Oh, absolutely fine. Yes, great.
Yeah. And this slide, just the colourful bit there, just sort of summarises really how we feel we meet our obligations around volunteers' health and safety. You know, we're only really interested in volunteers that we feel are suitable to do this type of placement and use our selection and matching process to do that. We only work in countries that, you know, through our risk assessments and vetting process, we feel are perfectly safe and reasonable for a young person to be in, that we provide you with information, advice and guidance before you arrive, this stage now, when you're about to start your placements, and then obviously providing that background support throughout your time, but also making sure you're at a placement that can provide you with support when you need it as well. So the ladder of support that Josh has mentioned, this really is a way of perhaps helping you and also your placement to see who you're going to go to for particular support that you might need. And so at the start, you know, fellow volunteers that are already in country, you know, through this process, you're going to have been introduced to 3, you know, current volunteers. They can continue to be a source of help, information and advice to you while you're in Spain, because they will have been through the same, you know, stages that you're going through. But obviously the staff at your placement as well. As we've said, you've got a specific go-to person at your school, the placement mentor. In addition to that, obviously, you're going to have your host family that are also keen to provide you with help and support. And what we find is that most of the questions, the queries, the things that you are unsure about when you're at your placement are going to be answered at that level. You know, you might have, you know, a headache in the first week you're at placement and you want to, you know, you don't know where you can buy some headache tablets from. Of course, you're not going to contact VIA and say to them, oh, where can I get some headache tablets from at my placement? You're going to ask, you know, people at your school, your host family, and say, you know, where's the nearest pharmacy, chemist, you know, that I can go to, how does it work? And they're going to point you in the right direction, or say, oh, I'll take you along to buy your headache tablets, for example. And you know, whether it's headache tablets or 101 other different things, they're going to be able to provide you with the answers that you need. If they can, sometimes escalating to a more senior level within a placement, or got one missing there, number 4, you know, if your question, your query, your issue can't be resolved really at that sort of placement level, obviously you're going to reach out to Josh for help. And some of you may feel more comfortable to reach out back to you know, key staff at VIA. You know, you'll have developed a relationship with some of those staff through your training and time there. And we get that sometimes for a German volunteer, actually having a conversation in German with, you know, one of their support staff at VIA is something that you know, are happy to do. And either is fine for both organizations. What will always happen is, you know, if one of you are in touch with Josh about something, then you know, he'll run it by VIA as well, if it's something that, you know, it's important for them to be aware of. And the same with VIA. If you raise something with VIA, they'll come back to us and say, such and such a volunteer has raised this, how do we think we can go about solving it, and what's the best answer? And we'll work, New Ventures and VIA work very much together to solve things and to provide you with the support that you need. If things are really serious, you know, which we obviously have to plan for, although, you know, obviously expect nothing serious will happen, then that's when somebody like me on the New Ventures side gets involved, and obviously the more senior staff at VIA as well. There's no parents in that ladder of support. Your parents, often aren't best placed to be able to help you with some of those things. They won't know where the chemist is, where the pharmacy is in Spain for you to buy your headache tablets from. Parents naturally will worry. And some of you may well know that you have parents that worry quite a bit about you and being away from home all the way down in Spain for a whole year. And so I guess you've got a responsibility not to cause your parents unnecessary worry and grief while you're away. And so often, rather than contact your parents and say, oh, I've got a really bad headache and I don't know where to get any headache tablets from, often contacting them to say, yesterday I had a really bad headache and my host family took me to the chemist and got me some tablets, and today I feel much better. Yeah, that often can work better for parents, and stop them worrying. So it's thinking about who's best placed to help, and rather than just immediately rush to the top of the ladder, yeah, really try hard to get things resolved at that placement level. Okay. These are some of the sort of low-level issues. You feel a little bit unwell, you're unsure about things at your placement. Maybe you've lost something, you're feeling a little bit homesick. All of these things should be dealt with at those lower levels of the ladder of support, at your placement with your host family. The level 2 incidents, a little bit more serious. Maybe you have been unwell and you need to go to hospital or get some other medical treatment. Yeah, your placement maybe hasn't seen you or your host family for a chunk of time. Yeah, maybe there are some issues that need resolving around your work role or attitude or how you're feeling. Maybe there are some weather warnings in Spain because there's going to be a drought or heat or something like that you need to be aware of. The health security side of things, I sort of feel, what if you can say it's a positive, one of the positive things that have come out of COVID is that there's massive reduction in the number of global terrorist incidents. It got to a point before COVID that you were just sadly almost on a weekly basis reading reports of some other horrible incident that had taken place in Paris or Manchester or various places around Europe. We're not seeing that anymore, and hopefully the world doesn't slip back into us constantly hearing about these horrible terrorist incidents. And so, yeah, there's been less of a need, I guess, for us all in our respective countries to follow advice based on security advice, and hopefully that won't change. Spain also has been a target for and had history with terrorist-related incidents, and hopefully that won't be an issue at all while you're there. So with these sorts of slightly more serious, then Josh is going to be involved. The school is going to let him know that you've had to go off to hospital for something, or or that there's some aspect of work that needs a little bit of help with. With some of those things, it may well be that through VIA, your parents are notified. Our policy is that we only really want to contact parents with your consent, because we feel that as a young adult on an independent program, that's perfectly reasonable. But we do reserve the right to, through VIA, contact your parents on occasion, even if it's something that you maybe wouldn't really want them to know about. We had a VIA volunteer at a school in the UK a few years ago, and she decided to go to the school library late at night with a bottle of gin and 2 of the 6th form students, and they all got very, very drunk. And obviously the school was very unhappy that the volunteer, who's a member of staff, what she did. And so obviously she was dismissed from the school immediately. And, you know, obviously she didn't necessarily want her parents to know the whole story. But given that she was traveling back to Germany, you know, much quicker than she or her parents had expected, it was one of those occasions where it was important that they knew the whole story. So yeah, on those rare occasions, that can happen. Serious incidents, physical assault, more serious safety incident, more serious health issue. Maybe a volunteer has breached that code of conduct. Maybe you need to return home for personal reasons. And to be honest, that one's a reasonably common one. You know, you're away from home for a long period of time. You know, in that year, things could have happened at home. Maybe you have an elderly relative that gets sick. Maybe you have a family member who suddenly decides to get married, and that you want to be back for that. So, you know, those things can happen. And it's about having that discussion then with the placement, with us, VIA, about, you know, how that's going to work, and how you're going to go home and when you return. So if there's something a little bit more serious, then often, yeah, things have to be planned for a little bit more. But again, ourselves, VIA, very much in discussion about a particular incident like this. Obviously, parents are aware, and we continue to support and work with you. And lastly, the horrible things that don't happen, but it's important to be aware of them, that a volunteer being caught up in some natural disaster or a terrorist incident, that a volunteer genuinely has gone missing, a death or life-threatening incident, serious sexual assault, arrest. So the really, really horrible things. And those are definitely the things that would come to my attention, and that with VIA, we'd be looking at a really critical incident plan, and how to move forward with that. But as I've said, you know, Spain's a perfectly healthy, safe place to be, but it is important that organisations like us and VIA have planned and thought through what would happen if something really terrible were to happen. So then, summary. Obviously, your health, safety and welfare is really, really important, which is why VIA will have already spent time talking to you about health and safety, while we spend time talking to you about it, you know, this week, and why, you know, it's important to be clear about who's responsible, and your level of responsibility there as well. Follow the advice from us, from VIA. Think about that ladder of support and the code of conduct. Yeah, think about the choices and decisions that you make. I think probably the single largest risk to any volunteer is probably alcohol, and a volunteer decisions around how much alcohol you drink, where you are when you drink, who you're around, and so on. And yeah, I'm sure Josh would agree that the sort of situations where we have had to intervene and had difficult situations to do, often alcohol has played, you know, a key part in what's gone wrong there. So be aware of that. And like I said, approach, yeah, being in your new town in Spain, perhaps in the same way as you would approach being in a new town or city back home in Germany. It's not familiar to you, where you're going to have to take some time just to familiarize yourself, you know, with the town and how it works, and take the time to work out, you know, bus routes, or, you know, where you're going to be going for shopping, and maybe parts of town that shouldn't be in at certain times of the night and so on. Yeah, and become familiar with that. And lastly, we've mentioned it, or I've mentioned it several times, just the thing about communication, that you've got a responsibility to communicate with your hosts and ask questions and raise concerns. Your placement's got a responsibility to tell us stuff. But yeah, if you don't speak to your host, you don't speak to us, then sometimes we wouldn't necessarily know that there's something that you need help with. Okay, that's me done.
Thank you, James. Thank you very much.
Did anybody have anything they wanted to say? There's one thing in the chat there. No, can't actually see anything in the chat. No.
Okay, it's a question from Sarah, which says, when we're sick, do we need an official sick note from the doctor for the placement, even if it's just a cold or slight fever, something that usually does not require a doctor? No, you won't need that. The family will be very understanding. And in fact, I think one of the things since COVID is that schools and families and people in general are more concerned and more conscious of prevention. So if you do feel sick, or maybe you've got flu, they would say, stay at home, don't worry. And you wouldn't need a sick note.
All good. Well, that's the end of my little bit. So I'm going to drop off the call. I'm going to wish you all the very, very best. And I know that I'll get updates from Josh throughout the year on how you're progressing. Also, we send out to you at different times sort of evaluation questionnaires, and actually they come back to me because I like to just glance through those to get a sense of how volunteers on all of our programs are doing. So I will read those and find out. But yeah, have a fantastic experience in Spain. Okay.
Thank you.
Good luck for the rest of the week, Josh. Give me a shout if you need me for anything else this week.
Okay, that's lovely. Thanks a lot, James.
Thank you very much, James.
Thanks, Jesse.
Okay, so we're going to go on now with another bit of our orientation, and we're going to speak specifically about Spain. In a moment, I'm going to ask both Yesit and Kudzi to explain the good things. Obviously, I want you to feel very encouraged and very enthusiastic about coming, but I want them to tell you the things that they have found. We have to keep in mind that both Kudzi and Yesit have come from much further than you have, than you're coming, and actually had to go for a lot more to get here, because gosh, it was an endless amount of paperwork and documents and applications and travel just to get here. But notwithstanding that, it's also really important to note that I think they are both very satisfied by the experience, and that's Yesit and Kudzi, probably have to tell us what it is that they've found satisfactory, okay, about and stimulating and exciting about the experience of being here. I know, but I want them to tell you. So as far as the Spain program goes, what you're getting is your placement at school. Okay, so you will be placed at a school. The schools are different. I can tell you, Nele is going to be at a very exciting school, but a very, very small school. Sarah is going to be at a very traditional school, a very big school in Vitoria. And I'm looking here, who else have we got? Clara is going to be at 3 schools, which make up a little group of schools. So each of you are going to have different experiences at your school. In the case of the VIA volunteers, you're coming to work, you will be placed 18 hours a week. If you're not coming through VIA, it's 15 hours a week. Okay, and generally that will be between 9 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Each school has got a slightly different timetable. So if it's a kindergarten, it's going to be more in the morning. If it's secondary school, then you're going to find that you're being asked to come in later in the day. The placements are Monday to Friday, generally, and generally we want you to be at the school. We want you to get, I mean, this is, it's a volunteer experience. We want you to have the experience of what it's like to have a full-time occupation apart from studying. And generally, we would expect you to be at the school during the school day. Okay? And there's a particular reason for that. What we don't want you to do is to spend a lot of time alone at home. Okay? We know from experience that spending a lot of time alone can be an isolating experience. And it can sometimes brings up negative feelings. So as Kudzi said, it's really, really important to spend as much time with other people. And so you might find yourself at school in the staff room, apart from your 18 hours a week, where you're speaking with other people. You will also find that there are trainee teachers. So there are Spanish teachers who are doing their practicum, you know, going to be more or less your age, and they're really good people to talk to as well. Okay. It's going to be Monday to Friday, but we do say to the schools, if you want a Friday off, to be able to work just Monday to Thursday. That's Monday to Thursday. So most of your classes will be Monday to Thursday. And that means that if you want to travel because you want to go and see some other volunteers in another part of the country, then that means on a Friday, you'll be able to travel. Or if you want to keep a Friday to do things like, well, you know, I want to go and join the local library. I need to go and look and see if I can join a gym, or I'd like to do just whatever it is, that Fridays are there for you as well. Okay, all the schools know that you're normally there Monday to Friday, but that some Fridays you can have them off. Okay, but again, it's not because you want to stay in bed until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That's not really using your time very usefully. Your role is going to be as a language assistant. You're not a teacher. You will teach things. You will share things you know with the children, but you're not a teacher. You're a language assistant. So that means you are helping the English teacher or the German teacher, and we'll see how that is done. Okay, we'll see how that is done tomorrow. Okay, but it is important, and that means, you know, the school should not be saying, here's a group, now go and spend 2 hours with them and do something. If you were an English teacher or a German teacher, that would be acceptable. And so we're asking their placement to always provide sufficient support. And you should not be in charge of a big class by yourself. Apart from your language assistant roles, it is also acceptable for you to be involved in general supervision. But Kudzi knows general supervision is sometimes at break time. The kids are there, they're playing football in the yard, or at dinner time. You know, the teachers might ask you, would you stay here whilst the children are having lunch? And of course, the children are always very excited to be able to interact with you outside of class. Okay. You'll be getting full board. That means all your meals in the host family, and you will be living as part of the family. And this is something we try, and we talk to the families about this, and we talk to the schools about this, because sometimes they ask us, what exactly are our obligations? And we say, you've got a new family member. You've got a new member of your family who's going to eat with you, who's going to do things with you. And we don't like to go on this. So what's the minimum? All right. There's an expression which we use in English, which is to monetize things. If we monetize things, this means that we think of things in a way that we can count. Okay. And so if we see a family, a host family, who says to us things like, well, if we have a volunteer in our house, then we expect 15 hours of supervision for our children at home. We say, we don't work like that. We're sorry. We don't work like that. It's part of the family. Okay, you can't count the number of hours that you expect our volunteer to spend. Okay, we do accept that there will be a limited number, there will be a specified number of hours where the family would like you to help the children with their homework. We think that's okay, and we'll look at that tomorrow. Okay, and that's part of all our programs. Okay, full board, that means they must provide all your meals. That means if they invite you to go somewhere with them, that means they will pay for your meals as well. Okay, so they can't say, oh, this weekend we're going to Barcelona. The host family cannot ask you to pay for the gasoline or even to pay for your accommodation. If they expected that, they would have to say, look, we're going to Barcelona. Would you like to come with us? But you would have to pay for your own accommodation. And in that case, you would be able to say, well, actually, no, I'm going to stay here. Right. We are working on the assumption that you're coming from September until June. So whatever time in September, you have to let me know once you have agreed with the family the exact day that you are coming. You let me know, and also you tell me your travel plans. Okay. You will be paid an allowance by NVW of 40 euros a week, and you will find that there are many, many opportunities to give private tuition, especially English. German too, Sarah, who's going to Corazonistas. Last year, Giza, our German volunteer, was very active, and she was actually giving German classes to the boss, the headmaster of the school, and he paid her. Okay, so you will find those opportunities are there. You will also have the chance, as Kudzi has done, which is to come to what we call immersion camps. That means that sometimes the schools will they'll send their classes or send a group of children to spend 1 week in the mountains speaking English with a bunch of kids, okay? With a bunch of native speakers. In those cases, you will be informed and invited, because we think if you spend a week on those immersion programs, we think that you will have the opportunity to learn things which you can use back at school. But not only that, you will also be paid 250 euros per week. Okay, that will be given to you in pocket money. And the schools know that you have the possibility of a maximum of 1 week per term to do this sort of activity, because we think this is a training activity where you will get good ideas to be able to share with the kids during the rest of the time. Rike, I see your hand is raised. Would you want to
Yes.
say? Yeah.
I have a question, because in the email you wrote that we get 40 euros for each month, but you just said for each week. So I was wondering if it
is
for
of
the
course
month or
per
for the
month.
week.
Okay,
Oh,
it's
okay.
a month. All right.
Okay, thank you.
the school knows that, you know, in order to get some pocket money, if you're going to be giving some private tuition, there are certain times of day. I can tell you right now, the most popular time for private tuition would be from about 4 o'clock until about 7 o'clock in the evening. Okay. And once people, family, friends of the family, and children at school know that you're there, you will be very popular and they will all come to ask you. The only thing I say is your priority is your school placement, and your second priority should be the family. And so the third priority with your time would be those other people who are going to ask you to give some private tuition. Okay, so that is basically the program. Okay, we're going to look now at some volunteers. I think we can see one there who we're going to listen to. This was the year just before COVID. As you know, we just started up last year again after COVID, or the year before actually. But you know, there's been fewer. So you can see there on the left, on the right, I'm sorry, you can see a bunch of our volunteers from different countries, and they're in a beautiful city, right there, beautiful city in the north of Spain called Burgos. And Burgos is very famous because it has a beautiful cathedral, and it is an exact copy of the cathedral in Cologne in Germany. Okay, so we'd have to guess that it was the same builders when they finished in Cologne. They came to Burgos to build another beautiful Gothic cathedral. Okay, so we do like volunteers to get together at least once a term, to be together, spend time together, and normally we would make sure that on a particular Friday you're all able to get together. This city, Burgos, if we look at the next, I'll show you on the next slide, is in the north of Spain, and it's actually right between the people who are in the Castilla area. So that's going to be Clara and Nele and Alexis, okay, and the people who are in the Basque Country, which is Sarah, Tame, Rike, and Sam and Celine when she comes along, okay? So we're going to be working mainly in 3 different areas. Okay, this is one of our volunteers, Stella, as I say, the year before COVID. I hope we can hear her. Let's see what she's got to say. Tell me if you can hear. Can you hear that?
Nope, Josh.
You can't hear that. All
no.
right. But if I turn it, if I try it again, then it's going to say share sound. All right. We'll try it again. So this is Stella. Stella. Now tell me if you can hear.
And I'm from Canada. And today
Yeah.
I'm Stella.
Can you hear?
Yes.
Okay, all right then. Well, we know her name is Stella, don't we? She's in another beautiful city, which is called Segovia, which is just north of Madrid, which is also in the Castile region. Okay, and this is another day that we had the volunteers got together and we went to this place. Anyway, let's listen to Stella.
I'm Stella, and I'm from Canada. And today we're at...
All right.
Hi, I'm Stella, and I'm from Canada, and today we're at the Alcazar in Segovia. It's this really beautiful castle, and I've been here for about a month now, and I'm absolutely loving it. My family is amazing. I live just about 10 minutes from Segovia, so I get to come to Segovia all the time and check out the bars. Made lots of friends. It's amazing here. I love it so much.
Okay, that's a very happy volunteer, all right? Which is great. Not all our volunteers are that happy all the time. Many of them are, but one of the things we'll be looking at this week are the sort of things which would not make you happy or would make you unhappy, all right? Stella was fantastic because she was very outgoing. She loved making friends. She loved making new people. And that takes you a long way. But there are challenges, okay? And I'm going to ask Kudzi first to tell us about some of the challenges, actually. Before I do that, I'm just going to show you, this is a map of Spain. And you can see that Spain has 50 provinces, okay? Has 50 provinces. And you can see there that most of our volunteers are in the north and in the east of Spain, okay? So you can see these are the different provinces where we have had volunteers, and you can see in the north around this area, which is called Castile, and this area, which is called the Basque Country, okay? So it's relatively easy to travel all the way up, all the way around, okay? All the way around that area, and you will be able to meet up, okay? We also have volunteers, and we will have volunteers that will be Yesit, that will be Tammy, Julia down in Valencia as well, plus Paula, plus Lena, okay? So there'll be 4 of you in this area, Valencia, Castellon, right? So you will not be a long way from other volunteers. And even if you were a long way, I can tell you that between Valencia down here and Valladolid, which is the kind of capital of the Castile area, that is 3 hours by train, okay? That's 3 hours by train. So it's not a massive distance, okay? So that, you know, if you're not feeling that great and you do want to get together with other people, you know, please do. That's what we're here for. And what we'll find is after the first 3 months in January, we're going to be receiving another 15 or so volunteers mainly from Australia and New Zealand. So we'll find that this map is even more populated, and I will be asking you to come and join in on the orientation to help them adapt a little bit, okay? So Kudzi, let me call on you, please. We've seen Stella, who is very, very happy. And every time I've seen you, you've been very happy, Kudzi. But tell us some of the challenges that you've had, which where you've had to make a real effort.
Okay, first of all, I will start with the language itself, which is Spanish. So when I came here, I didn't speak Spanish, which is a little bit difficult to speak to people. So the thing is, for example, when you go out for dinner or when you go out for lunch, if you don't speak Spanish, because most of the people you find out in the small towns, they can't speak English. So you might have a conversation, but it's not gonna be for the whole night, like throughout the dinner, because they have like this long lunch or dinner they'll be speaking. So normally here in Valencia, they speak Valenciano and Spanish as well. So at first, they try to accommodate you, try to like translate some of the things, but at the end of the meal, you find out like people because they're used to it. They used to speak in sorry, they used to speak in Valencian. They will definitely switch. They'll obviously switch to Valencian, you know, and sometimes it'll be difficult for them to translate for you like each and every word. So sometimes you might find it like it's becoming too much. Yeah. So sometimes I just like, you know, switch off, just like seeing people talking, but you know, like paying attention. But you are there, of course. But it's as well like it doesn't give you like the authority like to go on your phone and start doing other things. You just have to be there as well. That's one of the challenges. But well, the people are really nice. They will try and speak to you, but there is a limit where they can like speak to you. You know, sometimes it's difficult for them. I'm talking about the people around the area, the people that you meet. And as well, it's the same, like when you are in the area as well, when you walk through, you'll find out like a lot of people know you. This it's an advice, like, because when you're going to these small towns, they talk about everything. So they might know that is coming from Zimbabwe, is coming to work at the school. So when you come, eventually, you'll find out like some of the people, they already know you, and then they will like say your name, but they can't communicate with you. So you're like, oh, this is so strange. Okay, and then you greet them, but like they can't speak English, so it will be like difficult to communicate. But they are just happy to know you. And you find out like some of the people, when you greet them on the street, like when you greet them on the street, they greet you back. And then sometimes you feel like people, they ignore you. No, they don't ignore people, but the thing is they can't speak English, so they just like trying to avoid, and this is one of the challenges. And as well, what's the other thing? um, well, in my case, I wouldn't say like I had a challenge with that, but it's just like for future reference. And when you are dealing with the kids at the school, you must maintain the relationship of a teacher and to a kid. That's really important. And because sometimes, of course, we get comfortable with the kids, sometimes you don't have to, because I know like most of us, we are like, some of us, we're like 18, 19. So you have this age gap which is so close to each other. But I would advise like try to maintain that relationship. Don't like overlook that relationship, and let them respect you in such a way so that you won't have problems in the future. I didn't have the incident, but I'm just saying, just like for reference sake. And yeah, that was the other thing. The other thing, problems that you can face. Well, really, I didn't have lot of problems except for like papers. Yeah, when I was waiting for my NIA, I had to wait for a long time because the Valencian offices, the police, they are really slow. That's the other thing. You have to be patient whenever you are dealing with the papers. Yeah, you have to be patient. Sometimes it might not come the moment you want it, but it will eventually come out. So if you're applying for a year or whatever, you have to be patient with the Spanish authorities. That's the other thing as well. Yeah, and as well as in as much as like we would like to take vacation, of course we're allowed to take vacation. If you say like you want to go for, sometimes you can ask at the school, you want to go for 1 week for holiday to Portugal. You just have to make sure that you are not doing too much vacations, and then you spend less time at the school and less time with the family. So you need to be mindful. Like when you plan your things, you must plan ahead, and then you let the school know, like, this date I want to go, before you even book your things. Because as well, like sometimes they might have like some things that they're preparing for you. So if you have plans, you have to let them know in advance. Next next month I want to go to Barcelona, or next month I want to visit Madrid, so that they know if they are planning something, they know that Kudzi is not here, is not going to be with us. Yeah. So if you have any plans, or even if you just want to go out with your friends for some drinks, it's, I would say, like, I would advise you to ask like any plans for the weekend. If they say yes, and then they will tell you what it is. And if they say no, and then you go ahead and tell them like, I was thinking next weekend I can go out with my friends and we could do something. And most of them, they don't have problems like you going out with your friends. And so that's the basic thing. You just have to let them know in advance. And as well for the families, you find out, as I was saying before, families, they have different ways of doing their things. So you just have to be careful. You don't want to like to do some other things while they do other things. So you just communication is really important. If you communicate with your family, like, sometimes, in your house you do a lot of things, you can do this, but in someone's house you just have to ask, like, how do I do this, how do I do this, so that how to do things in their stuff, because some of the people, they don't want their stuff to be, to be touched or to be moved. So you just have to make sure you ask each and everything, so that you know that you are in the right place, you are doing the right thing. I think that's probably most of it.
Yeah, thank you, Kudzi. Yeah, that's very important. And I think the thing about sharing time, first of all, I have to remember that Kudzi came from Zimbabwe, and Yesit came from Sri Lanka. Now, Yesit arrived here at the end of April, which means he has been May, June, July, August, 4 full months, and we are still doing his paperwork and his documents. Okay, obviously,
yeah, it's crazy.
it's crazy. And with Kudzi, we've spent so much time on documents, but actually, remember that you're coming from Germany, within the EU. Alexis, I know you're coming with your, with your passport, so there's no problem. You are not going to have these problems. In fact, you don't need, with this particular program, you don't need a local Spanish identification number. We can get you one, and it might be useful, but you do not need it to be legally entitled to be in Spain. With your German identification number, identification card, or passport, that is enough. Okay, so you won't need to go through those processes. What Kudzi says about the family, or what the family want from you, is very important. So first of all, the family may say to you, look, on Saturday we're going to a big family party or a gathering. And you might say, well, no, I don't want to go. Before you say that, listen to what the family are saying, because it is possible that they have organized this special little family event because they want everybody to meet you. And so actually you saying, well, no, is not really an option. Okay. It's really, Spanish families are very welcoming and they're very generous with their time. But on the other hand, they want you to be involved as much as possible, which is very important. Or they might say, we're going to a particular place. They're not asking you if you want to, they're telling you, our plans for this weekend are to go to a particular castle or the beach or hiking. And they've done it especially because you're coming and they want to do it with you. All right? So if you look at this calendar, and you can see at the top, we've got September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, and June, you will see that where we have red dates, these are public holidays, okay? Which means that you have, these days will be off, you'll have these days off for sure. And then when it's dark green, these are the school vacations. So that's for Christmas, and then again at Easter. And then at February, in February, you can see light green. That week is normally off because it's the carnival week. These school calendars will give you the opportunity to take time off if you want to travel, or if your parents or family are coming to Spain to visit you. So you will have the opportunity. But before your family or friends decide they want to come and visit, make sure that it is convenient for the school and for the family. Another thing is, it's not automatically kind of given or accepted that you will be spending Christmas with the host family, because we don't know what arrangements or if they've planned to go on vacation. So before you decide you're going to spend Christmas in Spain, check with your host family and check with your family at home, please. Okay, sorry. Kudzi, I know you had something to say there.
Okay, I wanted to talk about like the things that the host family normally organize, because when we come here, like they want us to have a good experience in Spain. So we find out most of the things they do it because they want us to have a good experience, not because they necessarily want to, but because of you, they want you to have a good experience. That's why they organize some of those things for you. And as well as I was in terms of like Christmas time as well, yeah, it's of course if you want to travel somewhere, it's always good. But like I'm sure like they'll be delighted to share with you their own Christmas, like how they do their own Christmas time, you know. And it's you have to check with them first. Like if you don't have any plans, it would be great to spend it with your host family. But like if you have plans, of course you can let them know. But like just in case, you have to tell them in advance, you know, so that they, because sometimes they plan things thinking that you'll be here for Christmas, and then later on you tell them like a week before, like, I'm going to traveling somewhere else. They will be disappointed because they were like, maybe they were preparing something for you or like a surprise for you. So like you have to let them, because especially a Christmas holiday, you have to let them, you have to tell them in time.
Thank you. Yeah, that's an important thing. And some families at Christmas, they all travel to another part of Spain to be with another part of the family. Okay, and it might be that they don't have accommodation. There's not enough room for you. Okay, and so that's why it's always important to check and to ask and to discuss these things with them. Okay, I can tell you, it's very, very rare that a family would say to you, you can't come with us to do something. It might be, oh, we're going to a wedding. Well, it's possible that they only have a limited number of people who can attend the wedding, and maybe you're not invited. Okay, maybe you are invited. If you are invited to a Spanish wedding, this would be the craziest experience you can imagine. Okay, because they're absolutely wild. All right, so in that case, my advice would be to go. All right, Sarah, you have a question.
Yeah. When does the camps take place? So are they also in the holidays, or are they during the school time?
Yeah, there might be some of these camps during the school term, and there might be some of the camps at Easter. Okay, but the camps would tend to be in February, March, April, May, and June. So when the weather's a little bit better, but there might be some before. Okay. What we do is I ask people who organize these camps if they need people to let me know. And then I will pass the information on to the volunteers, and whoever would like to come, whoever volunteers first will go. Okay, we'll leave any more questions until the end. Yes, it says he agrees. Well, yep, he agrees. That's nice. It's nice to have somebody who agrees with you. All right. What I must say is that I will look at this tomorrow as well, that Spain has got 19 different independent, well, autonomous regions. So the same as the Länder in Germany or the different provinces of Australia, they've got 19 different ones. And that means there are 19 different school calendars. So if you're in Valencia, it's going to look different. In Valencia, there is no free time in February, but you get extra free time in March. Okay. So my advice, if you live in Valencia, is don't travel in March. Stick around because there are special things happening. Okay, as regards arrival in Spain, that can be any time from next week. It must be, or it should be in September. I know one of our volunteers is not 18 yet, so you won't be able to arrive yet. And I know that one of our volunteers has had a problem with her health, and she can come later. Our placements will wait. So for example, if you're meant to come on the 15th of September, and suddenly you have a driving test or some other thing, which means you have to come a few weeks later, the placements are fine with this. They're not gonna fuss. Okay, just let us know because you should be arriving shortly or soon. You can arrange with the placement on the exact date, how you're going to arrive, and where they will meet you. So that would normally be in Madrid, in Valencia, or in Bilbao. Okay, if you're coming by plane, right? If you're coming in Madrid and you need to get to Zamora, or get to Valladolid, or get to Palencia, let me know. I will help you organize those transfers, okay? Madrid Airport is fantastic because you have a direct bus service from Madrid Airport to most places around Spain, but certainly in the north of Spain. They're very frequent bus services, and they're very low price as well, okay? When you get here with the placement at school, I will ask them to provide you with a written timetable. And most of them know this already, so that you know that each week you have your timetable and you know what to do. I know which placements find this difficult. All right, so some placements are very organized and some are less organized. But I will ask them to sit down with you and to provide a written timetable for you. And the same at home. I think it's a good idea if we're going to ask you to spend 5 hours a week helping the children at home with homework. I think that is reasonable, but it is also reasonable for the family to say, these are the times we would like you to do that. So that the other time you can meet your friends, you can meet other volunteers, you can go to the gym or do whatever it is you want to do outside of that time. And it is important that you say it to the family. If it's written down, that's fine. Much better. Also, to ask and to think, what are your responsibilities at home? What do they expect of you? You are a guest, but you're also part of the family. And so it's a balance. I can tell you, when the family offer you something, my advice is also always say yes. Always. Try it. Try everything new. The second time, you might say no. But the first time, say yes. Do you want to come here? Would you like to try this food? Let me show you something. Say yes. Okay? These might be experiences which you will never be able to see again. You don't know how important they are, but try everything, then decide. And then settling in. When it comes to settling in, which means adapting to the new surroundings, I can tell you this is one of the most important things is to have other volunteers, okay, to support you, using chat, using WhatsApp, being able to talk to them, talk to me, talk to volunteers who have been here before. If things don't feel right, okay? You know your family will be there to support you. They're always going to be there to support you, your family in Germany. But there are things which they don't know, okay? There are things which they don't know about Spanish life, and you need to sort out and to manage here. Okay, you can tell them, you know, we never eat potatoes. We never eat potatoes. Well, Spanish people think that Germans only eat potatoes, and they think that Irish people always eat potatoes every day. And if you ask a Spanish person, do you know any words in German? They'll say, oh, yes, Kartoffeln, Kartoffeln. Yes, that's the word I know in German, okay? Because they think that that's it. But obviously, it's important to participate in the adaptation process because it's for you, but it's also important to observe and to reflect, okay, what's going on. So that's your settling when you get here. Now, once everybody is here, we will have our face-to-face session. We will meet in Madrid provisionally. Okay, we might choose somewhere else if we think the weather's not going to be great. We might choose somewhere else, but we're going to make sure it's somewhere which is comfortable and easy for everybody to get to. Okay, we will arrange that once everybody is here. And once you're in Spain, sorry, Kudzi, I know you had something else to say. Yes, it says it's always best to be with yes. Yes must always be your answer, please. Okay. All right, and yeah. Go on, Kudzi.
Okay. Go on, Kudzi. I wanted to talk about meals during, especially dinner, like when you finish work, when you go back home. Dinner is really important to sit with them and eat together as a family. That's what they always do because you find out like most of the kids sometimes they have extra activities after school, and sometimes you won't even find time to interact except for dinner time. So dinner time is really important. So normally when you're having dinner, no phones at all, please. Just avoid to use your phone during dinner time. It's better you leave it in your room or leave it here just in case or on the table, but don't stay on your phone like messaging on your phone. It's really important because that's you get to speak with the family, to speak with the kids, and all together. So like their dinner is a bit longer. You know, it's not like they eat for like 30 minutes and then they're done. They take their time when they're having their meals. So they find that time for interacting and talking. That's how you find time to interact most of the time if you look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Kudz is
Yeah,
quite right. The
yeah,
food.
sorry, Josh, go on.
Food and meal times for Spanish families is the most important thing in their life, okay? There is nothing which is more important than food. There is nothing which can substitute food. There is no reason a Spanish family or Spanish person would think about not having lunch. I'm too busy to have lunch. I'm sorry, that does not exist, okay? Therefore, a Spanish family would find it very difficult to understand if you said, no, have lunch without me. I will have my own food somewhere else. Okay? They would feel very offended. They would think, wow, maybe our food is not good enough for this person. We need to start making something else. And they would just insist more and more that you come. Okay? So they would not understand that you don't eat with them. The second thing, they would not understand if you ever said, I'm not hungry. I will have something later. That does not exist in the Spanish mentality. Okay? It's like, wow, again, we're doing something wrong. What are we eating today? We've got to eat something else then to make sure that whoever's coming with us, whether it's Alexis or Yesit or Celine or Sarah, is feeling comfortable. Okay. I'm not hungry does not exist. All right. Spanish people have a small breakfast, a big lunch, and a big dinner. Okay. You have to get used to this. You are gonna have to get used to this. Just the feeling of, no, I'll have something alone or I'll buy something myself. It does not exist, okay, in Spanish culture. Okay, couple of comments there. Okay, and then, yes, it says, oh gosh, the sobremesa, which is not only the act of eating, but as Kudzi says, it is the conversation after the meal, okay? They all want to have a chat and talk to you and see what's going on. This does not mean that you have to be a different person, okay? It does not mean if you're a quiet person, listen, all right? And speak. You don't have to say a lot. They are genuinely interested in you, but you don't have to invent some kind of other personality if you don't feel comfortable, okay? Okay, some practical things in Spain. At the moment in Spain, there is reduced, discounted travel for young people. In each different city, it works in a different way. So, for example, if you travel around Valencia, like Kudzi and Yesit have both got a free travel pass, which is at least until the end of the year. So if you're coming to Valencia, Leliana, San Francesc in Guadassuar, we will help you get these free transport passes, okay? There's also a discounted scheme whereby you can pay 50 euros and you can get free bus travel until the end of December. Those are the intercity buses. So from Valencia to Madrid, or from Madrid to Bilbao, or from wherever. You've got the link. I sent that to you via WhatsApp. I'm still trying to figure out exactly how that works, but when you get here, I will know, okay? And you can also check to see if there are discounts from the rail and the bus companies. The railway company is Renfe, and the bus company is Alsa. There are different companies, but these are the biggest companies, okay? I will start to send you newsletters with information about these discounts in the coming days, okay? So it's about getting around. Okay. Also, if you decide that you want to open a bank account in Spain, there are international banks, or online banks, I should say, like Revolut and N26. They don't charge you anything. It's free to have a bank account, and you can open the bank accounts online directly. Open Bank is actually a Spanish bank, even though it's online. And Open Bank is, you know, it's a little bit more difficult to open an account. So I would recommend Revolut and N26. Another thing you might decide, sorry.
Yeah, no, but it says Open Bank, but
Yeah.
even though it's hard to open bank.
It's hard to open bank.
Okay.
So maybe we should say Open Bank is like, we'll take that off. So it's not the best
Yeah.
option. Okay. So Revolut and N26, I think, would be the best options for you. Okay. As far as getting internet, or if you want a local telephone number, most people are happy to contact you via WhatsApp, right, these days. But if you want a local Spanish telephone number, these are the names of some of the companies. Oigo, but it's not called Oigo, it's called Yoigo, I'm sorry. Yoigo, Orange, O2 and Vodafone. Most of our volunteers have got SIM cards with Yoigo. I don't know why, if it's the best coverage. And I think they pay about 10 euros a month, which seems to give enough data and enough telephone calls. Okay. There are offices, Yoigo offices in all the cities. If you need any help, let us know. Let me just go back here for something. We're going to have, just so that you know how close the different people who will support you will be. So in this area, in Valencia, this is where I live. So you will be able to see me, and if you need help, I will always be here. I also travel up here to the north and to Castile, this area, frequently. So at least once a month. But in this area, we have somebody living in Valladolid, in this province. Her name is Laura, and she will help you if you need immediate help, somebody close by. In this area, we have another person whose name is also Laura, and she will also be able to help you if you need immediate help to do things, okay? So one of the things you have to do when you get here is to get a police certificate. So if you're in the Castile region, which is in Zamora or in Palencia or Valladolid, then I think you can probably all meet together one day with Laura, and she will help you get the police certificate. If you're in Valencia, I will be here. I will help you get that. And if you're in the Basque country, you will meet with the other Laura, and she will help you get that certificate. Okay. So apart from your placement and myself, there will be other people who are there local for you. Okay. Right. So thank you. It's 7 o'clock now. Now, have you got any specific questions? Please write them in the chat box. Okay. Rike, let's see. What's your question?
Yes, I have something, but it's kind of personal, but it's okay if everyone hears it though, because you mentioned that we can only arrive next week, but I already told you that I'm arriving on Saturday, but I wrote with my host family again, and I will be arriving on Friday because they invited me and my mom for like dinner, and we sleep there one night because we drove with the car to Spain, and then on Saturday she's flying back. So I was wondering if that's okay, and just wanted to tell you that so that you know.
Fantastic. Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. You know,
Okay.
If you're in contact with the family and they've already said, come along and we'll see you soon, and that's absolutely brilliant. Okay, just let me know when you're here.
Okay, so I will be there then on Friday.
Absolutely perfect. Yes, that's lovely.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, who else has put their hand up? Clara, please. Clara? Anything you need to know? If you don't, if you have something which after right now, if there's anything, so I wanted to ask and my microphone wasn't working. Oh, I forgot to ask and I just thought about it. Send me a message via WhatsApp and we'll start off tomorrow morning. Tomorrow afternoon, we'll start off with those questions, okay? We've got 2 hours and James won't be with us, so no problem. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.